Dear students, today we are going to discuss another fundamental and conceptual question of IR that has frequently appeared in CSS and PMS examinations. The question is, IR is a study of the world community in transition. Discuss. At first glance, this question may appear philosophical, but it is in fact one of the most analytical questions in the subject. The examiner expects you to explain how IR studies the ever-changing nature of international system. It is not merely about understanding relations among states. It is about examining how the world community continuously evolves politically, economically, socially, technologically, and strategically. Therefore, this question requires you to demonstrate that IR is a dynamic discipline that seeks to understand change, adaptation, continuity, and transformation in global affairs. Let me begin with a simple illustration. Imagine a photograph of the world taken in 1945, another in 1991, and a third one in 2026. Would these three pictures be identical? Certainly not. The world of 45 was dominated by the aftermath of World War II. The world of 91 witnessed the end of Cold War and the emergence of a unipolar order. While today's world is characterized by globalization, technological revolutions, cyber warfare, climate change, artificial intelligence, and the rise of new powers such as China and India. This constant transformation demonstrates why IR is often described as a study of the world community in transition. It examines not only the existing international order but also the forces that continuously reshape it. The renowned scholar Palmer and Perkins aptly observed the study of IR is concerned with the world community in transition. This statement captures the essence of the discipline. IR is not static. It studies a world that is constantly changing in response to political, economic, technological, ideological, and environmental developments. Before discussing the statement, let's understand its key components. The world community refers to all actors participating in international affairs. Traditionally, this included sovereign states alone. However, in the contemporary era, the world community encompasses international organizations, multinational corporations, regional organizations, NGOs, transnational advocacy networks, terrorist groups, multinational technology companies, and even influential individuals. The term transition signifies continuous change. It implies movement from one stage to another, from one international order to another, from one distribution of power to another, from one set of global challenges to another. Thus, the statement means IR studies the evolving interactions, institutions, actors, issues that characterize an ever changing international system. The international system is dynamic because no political, economic, technological, or strategic arrangement remains permanent. History demonstrates that global politics is shaped by continuous transformation driven by new ideas, emerging powers, technological innovations, and changing patterns of cooperation and conflict. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously remarked, "The only constant in life is change." This observation is equally applicable to IR. Political transformation is perhaps the most visible dimension of transition. History has witnessed remarkable changes in political structures, forms of government, patterns of international interaction. Colonial empires once dominated much of Asia and Africa, but after World War II, decolonization led to the emergence of dozens of newly independent states. The bipolar international system of the Cold War gave way to a unipolar movement after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, and today many scholars argue that the world is moving toward a multipolar order characterized by the growing influence of China, India, and other emerging powers. For example, the rise of China from a developing country to one of the world's largest economies has significantly altered global power politics. IR examines how this transition affects regional stability, international institutions, and strategic competition. Traditionally, states were considered the sole actors in international politics. Today, however, IR recognizes the growing influence of non state actors. Organizations such as UN, European Union, WHO, WTO shape international decision making. Multinational corporations influence global markets, while technology companies affect communication, information flows, and even national security. Similarly, NGOs contribute to humanitarian assistance, environmental protection, and human rights advocacy. The expansion of actors demonstrates that the world community has become far more complex than the traditional state centric system. One of the most significant transitions in the contemporary world is economic globalization. National economies are now interconnected through trade, investment, finance, digital commerce, and global supply chains. A financial system in one country can rapidly affect economies across continents. Likewise, disruptions in energy supplies or shipping routes can influence inflation, employment, and economic growth worldwide. The 2008 global financial crisis illustrated how deeply interconnected modern economies have become. Similarly, disruptions during COVID-19 pandemic exposed the vulnerabilities of global supply chains. IR studies these transitions to understand how economic interdependence shapes cooperation and conflict. As Thomas L. Friedman observed, the world is flat. Although metaphorical, this statement highlights the increasing interconnectedness of nations. Technology has also fundamentally transformed international relations. The digital revolution has introduced cyber warfare, artificial intelligence, satellite surveillance, drones, quantum computing, digital diplomacy, and information warfare. Conflicts are no longer confined to battlefields, they also occur in cyberspace. Social media influences elections, public opinion, diplomacy, and even international crises. Artificial intelligence is now transforming military strategy, economic competition, healthcare, and governance. IR continuously adapts to understand these technological transformations and their implications for global peace and security. Traditionally, security referred primarily to military threats and territorial defense. Today, however, the concept of security has expanded considerably. Modern security includes human security, economic security, energy security, food security, cyber security, environmental security, health security. The COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated that a microscopic virus could threaten global stability as profoundly as national military conflict. Similarly, climate change, water scarcity, cyber ethics have become major security concerns. IR studies these emerging dimensions because the international community itself has evolved. As global challenges become increasingly complex, cooperation has become indispensable. Issues such as climate change, terrorism, nuclear proliferation, pandemics, transnational crime cannot be addressed by individual states acting alone. The Paris Climate Agreement, global vaccination initiatives, and international counterterrorism efforts illustrate how states increasingly collaborate through international institutions and multilateral diplomacy. IR explains both the possibilities and limitations of such cooperation. International law has expanded far beyond traditional diplomatic agreements. Today, it regulates human rights, international trade, environmental protection, maritime affairs, outer space, international criminal justice, cyber governance. So, institutions such as International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court reflect the growing importance of legal norms in international politics. IR examines how these institutions evolve in response to changing global realities. From Pakistan's perspective, understanding the world community in transition is essential for effective foreign policy formulation. Pakistan's strategic environment has changed significantly over the decades. The country has experienced the Cold War alliance system, the post 9/11 security environment, the rise of China, regional connectivity initiatives such as CPEC, evolving relations with US, changing dynamics in Afghanistan, and emerging geopolitical competition in Indo-Pacific. These developments demonstrate that Pakistan's foreign policy cannot remain static. It must continuously adapt to changing international realities. This adaptability is precisely what IR seeks to understand. Several contemporary developments vividly demonstrate the transitional nature of the international community. The emergence of artificial intelligence is a strategic and economic tool. Increasing geopolitical competition between US and China, the growing importance of renewable energy and the global energy transition, the impact of climate change on international cooperation and security, cyber warfare and digital espionage, the expanding influence of regional organizations, the changing nature of diplomacy through digital platforms. Each of these developments illustrate that IR studies an international system that is constantly evolving. While IR effectively explains many aspects of global transformation, critics argue that the discipline has often struggled to predict major international events such as the collapse of Soviet Union or the rapid pace of technological change. Moreover, traditional theories such as realism sometimes focus excessively on military power, whereas contemporary international politics increasingly involves economics, technology, environmental challenges, and human security. Nevertheless, the discipline has evolved by incorporating new theoretical perspectives such as liberalism, constructivism, feminism, critical theory, and post colonialism, enabling it to explain the changing nature of the international community more comprehensively. Dear students, to conclude, IR is rightly described as the study of the world community in transition because it seeks to understand the continuous transformation of global politics, economics, security, technology, diplomacy, and international institutions. The discipline recognizes that the international system is not static but constantly evolves in response to new ideas, emerging powers, technological innovations, and global challenges. Consequently, IR equips scholars, policymakers, diplomats, civil servants with the analytical tools necessary to understand these changes and respond effectively to them. As the British statesman Winston Churchill aptly remarked, to improve is to change. To be perfect is to change often. This quotation encapsulates the essence of the question. Just as societies evolve, the international community is in a perpetual state of transition. Therefore, the study of IR remains indispensable for understanding not only the world as it exists today, but also the world it continues to evolve tomorrow. So the take home for you, the students, is whenever the examiner asks, IR is a study of the world community in transition, remember that the focus is not on defining IR alone. Its focus is discussion. Your answer should demonstrate that IR is a dynamic discipline that explains how the international system evolves over time. A high scoring answer should combine scholarly definitions, historic evolution, multiple dimensions of global transitions, political, economic, technological, security, legal, and institutional, relevant contemporary examples, and a balanced critical analysis and a forward looking conclusion. This analytical approach reflects the depth and maturity expected by CSS and PMS examiners. Thank you very